Welcome to the Bohemian Circle, where we uncover the stories that history forgot to tell properly. I'm Garth, and today we're diving into the life of a woman who painted revolution with a brush. Berthe Morisot, the Impressionist who changed art while the world wasn't looking. Introduction. The hidden revolutionary. When you think of Impressionism, names like Monet, Renoir, and Degas probably come to mind. There's a name that should be right up there with them. Berthe Morisot. She wasn't just part of the Impressionist movement, she was one of its founding members and arguably the most radical voice, yet her story has been whispered rather than proclaimed, marginalized rather than celebrating. Born in 1841 into a bourgeois French family, Morisot would spend her life quietly dismantling the very foundations of what it means to be a woman, an artist, and a member of society. She did this not with manifestos or protests, but with the brushstrokes that captured a world most people have never bothered to see. Part 1. The Making of a Rebel. The Gilded Cage of Upper-Class Womanhood. To understand Morisot's revolutionary nature, we need to understand the world she was born into. 1840s France was a society of rigid gender roles, where upper-class women like Berthe Morisot were expected to be ornamental, beautiful, accomplished in feminine arts, like watercolor, painting, or piano, but never professional, never serious, and certainly never financially independent. Women could paint, but only as a pleasant hobby. They could be patrons of the arts, but not practitioners. They could inspire male artists, but never compete with them. Berthe Morisot looked at these rules and decided they didn't apply to her. Early training and questions of seriousness. Unlike many of her contemporaries, Morisot received serious artistic training. Her parents, recognizing their daughter's talent, hired professional instructors. But here's where the story gets interesting. When Berthe and her sister Edma began studying with landscape painter Camille Corot, they weren't learning to paint pretty pictures for their drawing rooms. No, they were learning the same techniques as professional male artists. Corot reportedly said of his female students, "They are not women, they are men." While intended as a compliment, this reveals the mindset of the time. Serious art was masculine by definition. Morisot would spend her career proving that serious art could emerge from the female experience without needing to masculinize it. Part 2. Entering the boys' club. The salon and its discontents. In the 1860s, the Paris Salon was the only game in town for serious artists. It was conservative, male-dominated, and obsessed with historical and mythological subjects painted in a highly polished academic style. Morisot first exhibited there in 1864. At just 23 years old, a remarkable achievement for anyone, let alone a young woman. But Morisot quickly grew frustrated with the salon's limitations. The subjects deemed worthy were largely those of the public sphere. Battlefields, boardrooms, grand historical moments. What about the private sphere, where women spent their lives? What about the intimate moments, the daily rituals, the quiet revelations happening in drawing rooms and gardens? Meeting Manet, muse or collaborator? In 1868, Morisot met Edouard Manet, and their relationship would become one of the most fascinating in art history. Traditional art history often portrays Morisot as Manet's muse. She modeled for some of the most famous paintings, including The Balcony. But recent scholarship reveals a more complex relationship of mutual influence and artistic collaboration. Manet may have been the more famous name, but Morisot was pushing boundaries he hadn't even considered. While he was shocking Paris with his bold brushwork and unconventional subjects, she was quietly documenting a world that had never been considered worthy of serious artistic attention. The world of women and children, of domestic life, of feminine experience rendered with the same technical skill and artistic vision previously reserved for, quote, important, end quote, subjects. Part 3. The Impressionist Revolution. Rejecting the salon, the independent path. In 1874, Morisot made the decision that would define her career and cement her place in art history. She joined the first Impressionist exhibition, turning her back on the salon system that had defined artistic success for centuries. She was the only woman among the founding members of this revolutionary group. This wasn't just an artistic choice. It was a profound act of rebellion against the entire structure of the art world. The Impressionists were ridiculed, dismissed as amateurs who couldn't draw properly. For a woman to associate herself with this movement was not just to court artistic criticism, but also social ostracism. The radical act of painting women's lives. While her male colleagues were painting dancers and cafe scenes, public spaces where men naturally moved, Morisot turned her attention to the private sphere with the same artistic seriousness. Her paintings of women and children weren't sentimental domestic scenes. They were complex psychological portraits that revealed the intelligence, frustration, and the inner lives of her subjects. Take her painting The Cradle from 1872. On the surface, it's a mother watching over her sleeping child, a traditional subject. But look closer. The woman's expression is complex, even ambivalent. This isn't an idealized motherhood. It's a real, complicated experience of a woman whose identity has been subsumed into her role as a mother. It's subversive precisely because it treats this feminine subject with the same psychological depth as any other portrait of a statesman or a general. Part 4. The personal space as political. Marriage and professional identity. In 1874, Morisot married Eugene Manet, Edward's brother. Marriage typically ended a woman's professional life, but Morisot negotiated something unprecedented. She continued her career under her maiden name. This might seem like a small detail today, but in 1874 it was a radical assertion of professional identity, separate from her role as a wife and mother. Her marriage contract even specified her right to continue painting and exhibiting. She was essentially writing feminism into legal documents decades before the word entered common usage. Motherhood and artistic vision. When Morisot had her daughter Julie in 1878, she could have followed the expected path of retiring from public artistic life. Instead, she made motherhood itself a subject worthy of serious artistic exploration. Her paintings of Julie aren't cute child portraits. They're complex studies of child psychology, development, and the mother-child relationship. In works like Julia Daydreaming, Morisot captures the interior world of childhood with the same psychological sophistication that her male colleagues brought to their portraits of important men. She was arguing, through her art, that the experience of women and children were as worthy as the serious artistic attention as any subject in the official canon. Part 5. The Technique of Rebellion. Impressionist methods as feminist practice. Morisot's painting technique itself was subversive. The loose, quick brushstrokes of Impressionism were often dismissed as feminine, unfinished, lacking in the discipline and control associated with masculine artistic mastery. Morisot embraced this feminine technique and pushed it further than many of her male colleagues. Her brushwork is confident, even aggressive at times. She doesn't smooth or hide her marks, she celebrates them. In doing so, she's celebrating the act of creation itself, the energy and intelligence behind the artwork, rather than just the polished final product. The politics of plein air painting. When Morisot painted outdoors, in plein air, she was participating in another form of rebellion. Respectable women didn't spend hours alone in public spaces with easel and paints. But Morisot's outdoor paintings show her claiming public space for her own artistic vision. Her beach scenes and garden paintings aren't just pretty landscapes. They're documents of a woman moving freely in the world, choosing her own subjects, controlling her own artistic vision. Every brushstroke is an assertion of independence. Part 6. The Economics of Artistic Freedom. Financial independence through art. One of the most remarkable aspects of Morisot's career was her financial success. In an era when most women had no control over money, Morisot was selling paintings, supporting her family through art, and maintaining financial independence. She understood that artistic freedom required economic freedom. Her business acumen was as sharp as her artistic vision. She cultivated collectors, negotiated sales, and built a reputation that translated into financial security. Supporting other artists. Morisot used her success to support other artists, particularly women. She purchased work by her contemporaries, provided financial support to struggling artists, and used her social connections to advance the careers of others. She was building a network of artistic support that operated outside the traditional male-dominated gallery system. Part 7. Critical Reception and Misunderstanding. Contemporary Critics and the Gender Gap. Contemporary critics often praised Morisot's work in ways that revealed their own biases. They described her painting as feminine, delicate, and charming, words that diminished her technical skill and artistic vision. They couldn't see past her gender to recognize the radical nature of her work. On the other hand, some critics were more perceptive. Gustave Geoffroy wrote that Morisot's painting showed the last word in elegance and extreme refinement and impression. But even positive reviews were often focused on her gender rather than her artistic achievement. The erasure and recovery. After Morisot's death in 1895, her work gradually faded from art history memory. The Impressionist movement was canonized, but the stories told focused on the male artist. Morisot was relegated to footnotes, described as a talented amateur, or a muse rather than a founding member of one of art's most important movements. It wasn't until the feminist art historians in the 1970s and 80s began recovering women's contributions to art history that Morisot's true significance began to be understood. Scholars like Linda Nochlin and Griselda Pollock reveal how art history had systematically marginalized women's contributions. Part 8. The Radical Legacy. Redefining artistic subject matter. Morisot's greatest contribution to art wasn't just her paintings. It was her expansion of what could be considered worthy of serious artistic attention. By bringing the same technical skill and artistic vision to domestic subjects that male artists brought to the public ones, she was arguing for the importance and the complexity of women's experiences. Her paintings say, "The interior world matters. Private moments have public significance, and the experiences of women and children are as psychologically complex and as artistically worthy as those of statesmen and warriors." Influence on future generations. Morisot's influence can be seen in artists from Mary Cassatt to contemporary painters who continue to explore the intersection of gender, domesticity, and the artistic vision. She proved that an artist could be thoroughly professional and successful while drawing inspiration from traditionally feminine spheres of experience. Conclusion. The Quiet Revolutionary. Berthe Morisot never called herself a feminist. The word barely existed in her time. She never wrote a manifesto or gave speeches about women's rights, but every painting she created was an act of revolution. Every exhibition, a declaration of independence. Every sale, a step towards equality. She proves that revolution doesn't always come with fanfare. Sometimes it comes with a brush in hand, capturing moments that the world had never bothered to notice, painting with a skill that couldn't be dismissed, and building a career that couldn't be ignored. In a world that told women they could be ornamental but not essential, Berthe Morisot chose to be essential. She didn't just paint. She painted her way to freedom, and in doing so, she opened doors for every woman who would pick up the brush after her. Today, when we look at Berthe Morisot's painting, we're not just seeing brushstrokes and color. We're seeing the work of a woman who refused to accept limitations of her time, who found ways to be radical while appearing respectable, who changed art by insisting that her vision of the world mattered as much as anyone else's. The next time you're in a museum and see an Impressionist painting, look for Morisot's work. Look for the quiet rebellion in her brushstrokes, the assertion of independence in her choice of subjects, and profound artistry that she used to claim her place in history. Because Berthe Morisot wasn't just an Impressionist painter. She was a revolutionary who disguised her revolution as art, and in doing so, she changed both art and revolution forever. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life and work of Berthe Morisot. If this story resonates with you, please like this video and subscribe to the Bohemian Circle for more untold stories from art history and beyond. What other forgotten revolutionaries would you like to explore? Let me know in the comments below. Remember, the most profound revolutions often happen quietly, one brush stroke at a time.